On today's show, I'll tell you why Jarren Duran is the perfect fit for the New York Mets.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. I've been covering the New York Mets on this show since the 2019 season. It's the only podcast that covers the Mets 7 days a week throughout the regular season. If you want to find any of my written work, you can do so over at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Over the last couple of shows, we've started to look towards the trade deadline a little bit, just trying to identify where the Mets might have a need that they can address and some potential players that make sense. And to me, the guy the Mets should have at the top of their wish list if they are going to make a big trade at the deadline, particularly for a bat, it is none other than 2024 All-Star Jarren Duran. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Duran's game, he is a quick outfielder. He can play center, he can play left, he can play right, but last year defensively, he posted some really great metrics in center field. He is the triples leader for the last year and a half, continues to put up an absurd amount of triples. A guy that can set the table for you, can hit for a little bit of power, add a ton of speed to the base pass, and score a lot of runs. Just one of the few players in Major League Baseball that can actually both hit and defend as a center fielder, and that is a rare commodity. Plus, he comes with control. So let's just take it all the way back. For those of you who've never heard of Jarren Duran, what's his story? Well, he was a 7th-round pick by the Red Sox back in 2018, made his MLB debut in 2021, played 33 games that year, 58 games in 2022, didn't quite get his footing until 2023 when he played 102 games, hit .295, had a .346 on-base percentage, .482 slugging percentage, 8 home runs, 34 doubles, 2 triples. Again, all of that in only 102 games. That's a ton of doubles. I'm sure the Green Monster helped a little bit with that. And 24 stolen bases. Then you look at what he did last year when he was an all-star and finished top 10 in MVP voting, ended up 8th in that running for that race. He hit .285, .342 on base, .492 slug, 21 home runs, 48 doubles, which led the American League, and 14 triples, which led the major leagues. Stole 34 bases. If you look at Baseball References WAR, he was worth 8.7 wins above replacement. According to Fangraphs, 6.7 wins above replacement. Either way you slice it, one of the more valuable players in all of baseball. Then you have this year, numbers have taken a bit of a step back. He's hitting .273, .327 on base, .423 slug. So his OPS is now at .750 so far this season. But he still has 4 home runs, 17 doubles, and again is leading Major League Baseball with 7 triples, 13 stolen bases. And I talked about the defense. This year, it's primarily been out in left field, but last year, he was worth 17 defensive runs saved in center and 6 outs above average. He'll turn 29 years old in September. This is his age 28 season. And when it comes to team control, he is a Super 2 status player. What that means, because he ranked in the top 22% of players in terms of service time between 2 and 3 years of service time, so not quite awarded that 3rd year of service. Because he was ranked in the top 22% based on service time, he got to arbitration a year sooner. So he still has 4 years, or the Red Sox still have 4 years of team control. But this was his first year of arbitration. They signed into a $3.75 million deal with an $8 million club option. That club option will be voided if he is traded. So if the Mets were to pick him up, they would have 3 years of arbitration beyond this season. And you can maybe look at that club option as a potential projection for what his salary would be in 2026. And then it could go up each year from there. But he is going to be a lot cheaper than your other two outfielders, Nimmo and Soto. It could plug right in there in your window for not just this run this year, but 3 more runs beyond that. It would be the perfect fit in a lot of different ways. Now, why would the Red Sox trade him? You can make an argument last year he was their best player. Well, they have a crowded outfield right now. The top prospect in all of baseball, Roman Anthony, just made his debut last night, as you guys are listening to this, on Monday night. Just got called up, and that's because Wilyer Abreu went on the IL. Now, Wilyer Abreu has had a very nice season. He's the Red Sox right fielder. Then you have in center field Ceddanne Rafaela, who is a Gold Glove candidate. And he's under an 8-year contract that I don't know if you could really move. I mean, it's not a bad deal. It's $50 million over 8 years. But there is still a lot to be learned about Rafaela as a big leaguer. And I don't know how many teams are going to want to just take on an 8-year contract. So when you look at who's expendable in that outfield, all these guys are good. Rafaela gives you great defense in center field. Wilyer Abreu gives you great defense in right field. He's been very good offensively this year. And then you have Roman Anthony, who potentially could do everything for you and could be your next face of the franchise, who could play in any of those spots, left, center, or right. Jarren Duran is the one that's furthest along when it comes to service time. You have an extra year of team control with Wilyer Abreu. And Jarren Duran probably has more trade value as the bigger name, the guy that has an all-star under his belt. So if you're the Red Sox and you're thinking about who to move from your outfield to make the biggest impact on your franchise, it might make sense to cash in on the more attractive trade chip, the guy that's going to cost you a little bit more money over the next couple of years, who you have less control of, instead of guys that are locked up for you for a longer period of time that can be part of a wider window to contend with Roman Anthony at the center of it all. So if Duran's put on the table, I really think it's a good fit for the Mets. The question is, what would it take to get him? And that's where we're going to go in the next segment here. First, though, quick word from our sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site that's made for skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM. Start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Help us get closer to our next goal of 14,000 subscribers. So let's talk about trade package. And just first of all, options the Mets would have at the deadline in center field. Because as we talked about in yesterday's show, if you're going to improve this team, the few positions you could look at, you could potentially trade for a third baseman, but I feel like the Mets are better off staying internal and hoping that one of Mark Vientos, Brett Beatty, or Ronny Mauricio will be the answer there. You have second base, but Jeff McNeil is looking really good right now. And then you have center field. DH, the Mets have been pretty good this year. You have the Winker Marte floor at your DH is the way I would describe it. And Mark Vientos sliding over to DH with one of the other guys taking over third base. That is your real upside offensively. Center field could be a huge, huge upgrade spot for this roster because Tyrone Taylor, while he's played very well this year, he's better suited as a fourth outfielder. So if you could get a left-handed complement for him and bring in somebody that would add a spark to the top of your lineup, it's a no-brainer. The few options the Mets have, Cedric Mullins is going to get traded. He's a rental. The Orioles are going to be moving him. They've had a horrible season. I've talked about him getting traded to the Mets in the past, but he's a streaky hitter who hasn't played in a big market. So I don't know if I trust that as a rental, Mullins is really going to get the job done for you. And I also don't know how expensive he's going to be when it comes to what prospect you have to give up to get him. The trade I was talking about when I mentioned Mullins was Tyler McGill and Blade Tidwell going back the other way. That's certainly a far less expensive package when it comes to prospect value, or in this case, just MLB value too, because McGill's already a big leaguer, but it's still giving up something. And I just don't know if Mullins is going to move the needle enough. It's less about what it would cost to get and more about the impact I think he would have. The other center fielder that'll be talked about is Luis Robert, but Luis Robert's been bad for over a year now. 657 OPS last year. He's following it up this year with a 546 OPS. Stealing a bunch of bases, playing good center field, but not hitting. And you look at his contract, at one point it was seemed like a really team-friendly contract because he has 2 club options that were affordable when he looked like a superstar in 2023. Now, I don't know if I would even want to pay the $2 million buyout on that $20 million club option. But I certainly wouldn't want to pick up that option for a guy that's been injury prone and bad for over a year. So all roads then lead back to Duran, who would be a perfect complement to Brandon Nimmo and Juan Soto in that outfield for years to come, who would provide a real shot in the arm for a contender and a guy that has played in a big market before. So when you are looking at what you have to give up to get him, it's going to be steep, but it could be worth it. And when I am doing mock trades, I have the benefit of a whole company over at Just Baseball. I have a lot of people who know prospects who I can toss a package at and get some feedback. And the first person I always text is Aram Layton, who is our prospect expert. He's our guru behind our top 100. And last week, I did a show where I was breaking down his latest update of the top 100, which included 6 Mets and 1 on the just missed list in AJ Ewing. So 7 top 100 talents in the Mets system that carry a lot of traded value right now that could be put on the table for a Jarren Duran. And if you want to learn more about them, again, check out the show I did on Friday last week. But with all of this capital, the Mets can trade for anybody they want to. When I try to come up with a mock trade, my goal is for the trade to hurt. It's not going to be a trade that I'm just completely happy with. Because if it is, it's a bad mock. That's the telltale sign of a bad mock is if you are 100% happy with it, it's bad. It's not accurate. So it's got to hurt a little bit. And you're going to think that this is too much. Maybe you're right. I don't know if you'd have to go this far, but this is as far as I would go before I'd say no. These are pieces that I'd be willing to put on the table to protect other pieces in this farm system. So the trade package is Jonah Tong, Jacob Reimer, and Ronny Mauricio for Jarren Duran. Now, if you could get a reliever in this deal as well, that would make it a little bit better. But I'm not even going to get that far. It's not even worth it to go down that road. Right now, what I'm talking about is what I give up for Duran, and I would give up those 3 young players. Now, why does this make sense to me? Where would I say no? All these different things. We'll start off with the headliner, which is Jonah Tong. Now, when I sent this to Aram Layton, let me scroll back and see what he said on our text string here. So I texted Jonah Tong, Jacob Reimer, and Ronny Mauricio for Jarren Duran, who says no. We weren't talking about anything. It's a random text he got, which is pretty standard. He thought about it for about 15 minutes. I got a response back. Man, that's not bad. That's as good as you're going to get when you send somebody a mock trade, because anytime you're sending a mock trade where it's your team on the end of the deal, everyone's going to think it's biased. But I got a man, that's not bad. We went back and forth a little bit. The thing that we were talking about was the fact that the Red Sox would probably want Nolan McLean as the headliner instead of Jonah Tong. And that's where I would, put my foot down. Because I'm not trading Nolan McLean for anything shy of Paul Skeens, and that's not going to happen. Skeens is going to get traded. So I'm not trading McLean. Because to me, McLean is the one guy in your farm system right now that, for one, is dominating in AAA. I was going to talk about this in the next segment, but might as well bring it up now. You have him right now piggybacking Frankie Montas, who has not been good on rehab, by the way. Most recent start on Sunday, Montas allowed 3 runs on 4 hits, walked 3, hit it better, gave up 2 home runs. Brutal outing overall. But he did get up to 76 pitches, which is a good thing. So he's almost up to a full workload. One more start, he'll be there, but I'm sure they want to see him have a good start under his belt before he gets the call up. So that's your little Montas update. But McLean has been piggybacking, and he threw really well on Sunday. 5 1/3 innings pitched, allowed 2 hits, 1 run on a solo homer, walked 2, struck out 4. His ERA in Syracuse is 2.48. All of a sudden, I'm looking at Nolan McLean, and I'm saying maybe the Mets should go the Corbin Burnes 2018 route, and they should shorten him up, because that's what David Stearns did with Burnes back in 2018. In July, he shortened up Burnes, so he made him a reliever in the minor leagues. Looked good for a little bit, brought him up, and he was an absolute weapon in August and September and pitched great in October. So if the Mets are trying to put their best foot forward, yeah, you could go out and you could trade for some type of a closer and give up prospects, or you could shorten up your best pitching prospect who's got a devastating sweeper and a fastball that's got both run and ride to it that would play up out of the bullpen with just those two pitches or a couple variations of his fastball along with the devastating sweeper. And you have a guy that could be a multi-inning weapon for you that you could deploy out of the bullpen. So I'm not trading him. I'm not, because he's too close to contributing and he's too good. Jonah Tong is a really good pitching prospect. A lot of Mets fans say, okay, well, no, trade Brandon Sproat. The fact that you want to trade Brandon Sproat is why Brandon Sproat doesn't make sense in this mock, because his value is down. Jonah Tong's value is up. He is dominating in Double A, and I do think that keeping Jonah Tong in Double A right now is partially to boost his trade value. Not that they're definitely going to move him, but he is a very attractive trade piece right now. He is mowing down the competition in Double A. He's got a great fastball, now a good changeup. Curveball needs some work to really round out his arsenal. There is some reliever risk with Jonah Tong. We haven't seen him pitch in AAA. If Brandon Sproat had just been in Double A this whole time, maybe his stock would still be high, but you wanted to challenge him because you thought he was potentially going to be a piece of the 2025 Mets. And so far hasn't worked out for Sproat. That's why I think you're not moving Tong along just yet until you know for sure he's going to thrive in AAA, because he could be the headlining piece to get you an all-star center fielder. So for me, I would trade Jonah Tong in this deal because you're keeping McLean. Now, Jacob Reimer is now a top 100 prospect at Just Baseball. I don't know how many other outlets have him in the top 100, but he has been one of the best hitters in all minor league baseball this year. He has been the best hitter in the Mets farm system. I would be very hesitant to move him, but I would do it because, to me, if you had to pick between trading Jacob Reimer or trading Jet Williams or Carson Bench, I'm hanging on to Bench and Williams. Jet Williams is a guy that could be a huge contributor as soon as next season. Carson Bench could fly through the minor leagues. He could be your center fielder of the future, who would be blocked a little bit by Jarren Duran, but the Mets can make it work. You just don't trade that guy right now. Reimer, his stock is up. Absolutely. He would move the needle. I'd like to avoid trading him. I'd like to make it Jonah Tong, Ronny Mauricio, and then a less attractive third piece, even if it is an AJ Ewing, who is a speedster, who's killing it in Brooklyn as well, but doesn't have quite the value as Reimer when you think about the impact that Reimer could have in his bat, where he could be a 20, 25 home run guy who's an above average hitter, maybe an average third baseman. Like, I think he's going to carry more weight. And then Ronny Mauricio is a guy that I think a lot of you might be like, how do you trade Ronny? Ronny's a huge part of this team this year. I get it. I've seen a lot of people when they're talking about Jarren Duran, they're saying, okay, Mark Vientos sent him over to Boston. To me, that defeats some of the purpose of an all-in season and an all-in trade. Ronny Mauricio looked great at Coors. Didn't look so good against Dodgers pitching. Looked great at Coors. We'll see how it looks. If Ronny Mauricio is awesome, Brett Beatty's awesome, Mark Vientos comes back and he's awesome, and Jeff McNeil is holding his own center field, you don't have to do anything. But at the deadline, if the Mets need to make a move, there's a chance that Ronny Mauricio didn't hit. He's got a ton of upside. I think the Red Sox would love to have him because he could plug right into their infield mix right now. A team that has a crowded outfield, all right, well, now you have a guy that can plug into that infield, which is also a little bit crowded, but not nearly as crowded. Here's the thing. If you had traded Brett Beatty a couple of years ago, he'd have more value than he has right now. Ronny Mauricio has more value than Beatty because he doesn't have extended struggles in the big leagues. So I would not be opposed to trading him if it gets you a potential all-star center fielder. Again, this is not my best offer for the Mets. This is a trade package that hurts. So that's why, it's a pretty good one. And Red Sox fans might say it's not enough, but I'll tell you what, I asked a couple of different people at Just Baseball, RM being the first one, but a couple other people, the new prospects, and a lot of the response I was getting was, it's a pretty good package for the Red Sox. And maybe it's even too much for the Mets to give up. But again, the way I look at it, Ronny Mauricio, with what you already have, is a little bit of surplus anyway. Jonah Tong's not your top pitching prospect. He's maybe your second best one, but you hold on to your top pitching prospect and you hold on to at least your top 2 position player prospects that are above Reimer. So I would make that trade, because what the result is you have a lineup of Francisco Lindor, Jarren Duran, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, and Brandon Nimmo, your 1 through 5. That's as good as any team could put out there. I mean, Duran bats leadoff for the Yankees. Duran bats leadoff for the Red Sox. You could have a little more speed in that leadoff spot, but the way Lindor has thrived there, I'd keep Lindor first, bat Duran second. He gets incredible protection with Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, have Nimmo back in the 5 hole. I think Mark Vientos would bat 6. And the reason, again, why I say you keep Vientos, let's not forget, the guy hit 27 home runs in 111 games last year, and he was great in the playoffs. I'm not giving up on that bat. I think he's been pressing all season. I think he's going to come off this injury and look a lot more like the Mark Vientos we know and love from last year. So to me, you're trying to win a World Series this year. Don't get rid of a guy that proved he can play under the bright lights of October. I'd hang on to Vientos. Jeff McNeil could bat 7th in this lineup. Alvarez 8th, Brett Beatty 9th as your third baseman. And if Beatty is not working out for you, you can always put Vientos back at third base and have the platoon of Jesse Winker and Starling Marte as your DH instead. Otherwise, those guys are top bats off your bench, a lefty with Winker, a righty with Marte. You got Torrens as your backup catcher, and Luis Angel Acuna would be, might be down for a little bit at some point this season, but I think he'd be up and contributing in the stretch run as the same role we're seeing right now. Super utility, speed guy off the bench. That's a damn good team. That's a team that can win the World Series. And that's why I'd make this move. We'll see. We'll see if it ends up being something that's actually on the table. But I feel like if there is a player that David Stearns would put a couple of top 100 prospects on the table for at the deadline, it would probably be someone like Jarren Duran. I don't know if the Mets would need to put that much on the table or would want to put that much on the table to address their rotation. I certainly don't think they would want to do that for their bullpen. And then where else are you making that type of a blockbuster trade? Like, what else are you looking for? So Duran makes a ton of sense to me. We'll see if the Red Sox even move him and if the Mets are interested. But I thought it was a fun topic to discuss on the show today. Final segment. We still got a series preview to discuss, so we'll get to that in just a minute. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where'd all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center where you can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start to build wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track your shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. If you're an everydayer that's always tuning into the show, make sure to become a Locked On Mets insider. This is our texting service. We get updates from me anytime news breaks in the Mets. You can ask me questions anytime. Take part in our Locked On Mets signed photo giveaways. Get a line graphic sent to your phone each day so you know the starting lineup without ever having to go on social media. If you want to be a Locked On Mets insider, find the link in the episode description. Go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this upcoming series. There is a roster move to discuss before we get into Mets versus Nationals, though. The Mets acquired Justin Garza, a right-handed pitcher, in a cash deal with the Giants. He was on a minor league deal. The Mets have now selected Garza and optioned Brendan Waddell. Waddell was providing some long relief, left-handed reliever, left-handed starter that has been pitching out of the bullpen. He'll go back to Syracuse. Garza will be another potential product of the Mets pitching lab. Jose Castillo was acquired in a very similar way this year. A guy that was just kind of out in the scrap heap. The Mets acquired him, and he's been pretty solid. Garza was pitching to a 6.11 ERA in AAA in 17 and 2/3 innings pitched. But you look at the stuff, the strikeout rates have been good. The walk rate has been good. Fastball has been averaging over 96 miles per hour, a real uptick. He last pitched in the big leagues in 2023. This is a guy that the Mets must have just loved his stuff. He was also pitching in the PCL, which is a hitter's haven. So every chance that he was getting clipped a couple times on some pitches that weren't that bad or home runs that were a little bit cheap. We'll see what he looks like. But clearly this is an arm the Mets believed in. He's also an optionable arm. He has a couple of minor league options. So now that he's on the 40-man roster, he can go up and down. So right now, I'd view him as the Max Kranick placeholder. Then when you get to June 18th, Kranick could come back if the Mets at that point have room on the roster for him. The bullpen right now for this upcoming series, you have Edwin Diaz, Reed Garrett, Huascar Braziban, who have all gotten great rest, which is awesome. Diaz and Braziban 3 days. Reed Garrett did not pitch in that Rockies series, so he's got 4 days off. That's fantastic. Those have been the real backbone relievers for you this year, so it's good that all of them are ready to go. You have Stanek, Budo, and Jose Castillo as sort of your middle tier. Budo has gotten 2 days rest. Castillo has also gotten 2 days rest. Stanek has gotten 3 days rest. So this is as rested as the Mets bullpen has been in a very long time. Then you have Garza and Paul Blackburn, although Blackburn, after throwing over 70 pitches on Sunday, imagine he won't be available until at earliest, I would say Thursday. So the final game of this series. And then more likely even Friday. When's Tyler McGill pitching? I imagine they might try to just piggyback McGill again. So you look at this series and you go through the pitching matchups. Mackenzie Gore and Griffin Canning for game 1. Jake Irvin, David Peterson for game 2. Game 3, Mike Soroka versus Kodai Senga. I think the Mets have a huge advantage in that start in particular because Senga's been lights out this year. But I think they also have advantage with Peterson over Irvin, although Irvin has had some success against the Mets in the past. We'll talk about tonight's game in a second here. You look at the rest of the week. Clay Holmes would start on Friday. Tyler McGill would start on Saturday. So if you need Blackburn before then, of course, you'd go to him maybe as soon as Thursday if you really did need him, but I don't think you would with Senga on the mound. Maybe it's backing up Holmes, but more likely you can piggyback McGill again. And if it works out the way it did on Sunday, that can completely save your bullpen for a day. So we'll see. We'll see how the Mets manage that situation. Getting back to this upcoming series here. The Nationals are 30-35 this season, in third place in the NL East because the Braves have been in a tailspin. I think they might have won today. I know Chris Sale pitched well, so yes, they did win 7-1 over the Brewers. Sale had an absolute gem. 7 innings, 11 strikeouts, 1 earned run. So they were able to stop the bleeding of what was, I think, a 7-game losing streak. They are 2 games back of the Nationals. The Nationals 11.5 games back of the Mets. And what is that? 7.5 games back of the Phillies. Don't really expect the Nationals to compete this year, but they've been a friskier below 500 team than some others. They are 5-5 in the last 10 games played. Josh Bell's been hot lately in 881 OPS in his last 11 games played. Luis Garcia's hitting 366 in his last 10 games played. And James Wood has been great all year. Overall, the lineup is in the middle of the pack. They are 18th in runs scored. The Mets are now up to 8th in runs scored after their outburst over the weekend. They're now 5th in team OPS. The Mets are. The Nationals are 19th. So a middle of the road to a little bit below average offense. Their pitching has been decent in their rotation, 4.32 ERA, and a disaster in their bullpen. That's why this is a bottom 5 staff in all of baseball. It's the worst bullpen in the National League this year at 5.81 ERA, second worst in Major League Baseball. Only the A's have a worse bullpen ERA, and they're playing in a minor league ballpark. All right, so let's talk about this series. The key to win, it's getting into that bullpen. That's pretty clear. You got 3 pretty quality starters going for the Nationals, but if you can work them, get them out of the game early, you get into that underbelly of the Nationals bullpen. If games are close, the Mets should have a huge advantage in pulling out the tight ones late with their bullpen fully rested. And again, a Nationals bullpen that outside of their closer, Kyle Finnegan, has been pretty brutal this season. This first game, Mackenzie Gore is definitely a better pitcher right now than Griffin Canning. So the Nationals do have an edge tonight. Gore was the fastest pitcher in the majors this year to get to 100 strikeouts. He's had a great season, sub 2.8 ERA with 108 strikeouts so far. He's been really good. Left-handed pitcher, so I'd imagine you would maybe give Brett Beatty a day. That's a tough matchup, although maybe you believe that he can catch up to the heater and you'd rather start him than Jeff McNeil. Personally, I would start Jeff McNeil at second base, put Ronny Mauricio over at third, DH Starling Marte, of course, play Tyrone Taylor in center field with Nimmo and Soto flanking him. You're obviously going to have Lindor and Soto in the lineup, and then whichever catcher you pick. That's how I would suit it up tonight. And we'll see if this lineup can sustain what they did against the Rockies. Obviously not to that extent, but just a better collection of at-bats, ball leaving the yard a bunch. We'll see if Pete Alonso can remain on this home run heater he's been on tomorrow's show. I'm going to look at the schedule and try to identify and predict when Pete Alonso will pass Strawberry. So that's what you had to look forward to for tomorrow's show. I'm going to talk about that likely, as well as whatever the key storylines are from the game on Tuesday night. I missed Mets baseball today. I'm sure you all did too. Excited to get it back later tonight. As always, thank you all for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Want to be Locked On Mets Insider? Find the link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen or your first watch every day. Now, for your second watch, check out Locked On MLB Game Night, the show that'll take you around Major League Baseball action with insight from all of our local experts. You can find Locked On MLB Game Night on the Locked On MLB podcast feed, as well as the Locked On MLB YouTube channel.